This is Hannibal here from the HannibalTV.com with a lot of news today in my daily combat sports news update. So I will jump right into it. Smackdown from Madison Square Garden featuring Brock Lesnar. I know John Cena wrestled on the card itself, but I haven't actually even watched the Smackdown highlights. I don't even care enough this week to watch the highlights, but it did a 0.6 rating. And apparently it was the highest financial gate in Smackdown history. So whatever the gate was, it hasn't actually been released yet, but Ariel Helwani has confirmed that this was the highest paid Smackdown of all time as far as arena gates. Apparently a segment featuring Kevin Owens was cut from Smackdown. Owens has been hinting that he's going to be jumping to AEW lately, so it doesn't surprise me that they cut him out. Also, he's one of the lowest drawing wrestlers as far as ratings. If you look at some of the all-time low record ratings for WWE, he's usually heavily featured on those shows. Apparently his contract is expiring in January 2022 instead of 2023. This is because WWE apparently restructured his contract. Supposedly, according to Inside Sports, he makes about $2 million a year. So that's one contract they would certainly be making a good move by lowering at the very least. And if they can get him right out of the company, I assure you it will not make any negative impact. Sami Zayn's contract, although no date announced, that will supposedly end soon. So I do think if AEW is good for WWE, it certainly is going to be good for getting rid of some of these stale guys like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn that both look like shit. Zayn looks like a manager. Owens looks like the guy at the Wendy's fry station. So dump some of these wrestlers, bring in some better ones, and you'll be on a better path. Pierre Willett, who still keeps himself in great shape at age 53 and is one Quebec wrestler, although I may not always like him, I do respect him. I actually had my last match against him in May 2018 in Pembroke, Ontario. I defeated him. And I guess it's come out that he's leaving Ring of Honor when his contract expires at the end of November. I can't blame him for that, because he's 53 years old and nobody watches Ring of Honor anymore. It has very little momentum. When he joined, it was right as AEW was starting. So the Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks and that group of guys were all in Ring of Honor, and it was probably the hottest it ever was. But in recent years, Ring of Honor has just become practically irrelevant. So I can't blame him for wanting out of that contract. And he did tell me he actually had an offer from AEW before signing with Ring of Honor. But at that point, AEW hadn't actually started yet. And it was unknown, as Piper comes in to say hello, it was unknown how good AEW would do, and he was also already getting older at that point, and Ring of Honor was already running. So he chose Ring of Honor at that time rather than wait for AEW to start, where he has a lot of friends from AEW. So I would expect him to go to AEW. That would be my educated guess, since WWE is not looking to sign older wrestlers at this point. And yeah, so good to hear that, because he does wrestle a very rough style and destroys his body. I'll give him credit that he's not crippled yet for some of the stuff he does, and like practically no one's watching what he's doing in Ring of Honor. So if you're going to do that to your body, you may as well do it for a bigger company. Apparently, they did an angle on Rampage, speaking of AEW, on Friday, where Andrade fired Chavo Guerrero as his manager, and people are believing that Ric Flair will be replacing Chavo. So that might very well happen. I wouldn't be surprised if Ric Flair ends up at AEW 100%. It would make the most sense, and I definitely would watch those segments, even though Andrade doesn't necessarily appeal to me as a wrestler. Jonathan Coachman has been slamming the WWE lately. He apparently said on his Ask Coach podcast that when he was working for the XFL recently, he had to pay expenses between $8,000 and $20,000 out of his own pocket. He was never reimbursed. He said, quote, "I will never work with somebody like that again. So the taste in my mouth from wrestling right now is very, very bitter, because when you put 20 years into somebody, a relationship to help them build their brand, and then they just turn their back on you over and over, to them, a little bit of money. To me, it was a lot of money. Then at the same time, they're cashing in millions of dollars in stock and laying people off the same day. They are doing that is bad business," end quote, he said. So again, that's more proof that WWE always likes to call themselves the family, and their independent contractors are just family members and all this crap, when in reality, they'll drop you very easily. It's just a fact. He also went on to say that he went to Afghanistan once with WWE, and he was asked to go back again, but he couldn't make it due to some conflict. And he claims that he was given a surprise beating by The Undertaker and Batista in the ring that he was not notified for beforehand, as punishment for not making it the second time to Afghanistan. So beatings in the ring happen. Definitely. It happened with Rene Dupree and Bob Holly. It happened with Ron Simmons and JBL to Public Enemy. It's happened a lot of times. I've done it to people. And there's also been, and it's always been well deserved, but there's many cases of that throughout history where quote unquote hits are put on people in the ring. As far as the boxing fights that happened last night, with Anderson Silva knocking out Tito Ortiz in the first round, which, by the way, Tank Abbott did live reaction to on this channel. Those videos are up on this channel right now. Tank was obviously very happy about that. But the estimate is that Anderson Silva probably made around $600,000 for that fight, and Tito Ortiz probably made around $300,000. But Anderson will also take around $70,000 to $90,000 of Ortiz's payoff, because Ortiz missed his weight by 5 pounds, which forces him to submit 30% of the purse to Silva. And for the Holyfield versus Belfort fight that also ended in the first round, they're estimating that Evander probably made somewhere around $500,000, and Belfort will likely make around $400,000. And everyone involved in those matches are probably also going to get a percentage of pay-per-view shares. So apparently Belfort has put up a winner-take-all fight, saying he's raised about $25 million, and Triller CEO Ryan Kavanagh is willing to throw in $5 million to have a $30 million winner-take-all fight versus Jake Paul, because he doesn't believe Jake Paul would take a fight against him. I actually believe Paul would do better than Evander Holyfield, to be perfectly honest. And that fight could very well happen. Why does everyone want to fight Jake Paul? Because he's pretty much the most popular quote-unquote boxer right now. You can make the most money fighting him and get the most publicity, so why not? I got some tips here. Thank you very much, Bill, for the $20 tip. I really appreciate it. I'll put that towards my interviews I have coming up with Virgil, Rockin' Robin, Max Payne, Ken Resnick, former AWA and WWE announcer. Really appreciate Bill's continued support. And Carlos tips $5. Really appreciate it. Carlos and Bill with another $10. Bill, you are a great guy. I really appreciate everything. Herb is going to miss me at the Cauliflower Alley Club in Vegas. The problem with me going there this year is I actually do have tickets, which I'm not asking for a refund of or anything like that, but I just have way too much traveling in the coming months. And next week, I actually have to go to Philadelphia and New Jersey. But I only found out a couple days ago that right now the border, you can drive from the U.S. to Canada right now if you're vaccinated, but you can't drive from Canada to the U.S. So instead of me just driving 7 hours to Philadelphia from where I live, I now have to fly to Toronto, then fly to Philadelphia, rent a car, and fly back from New Jersey, which I literally thought was just going to be a simple thing. And I have something to do Monday in New Jersey. But because I have to fly back now and the only flight's Tuesday morning, there's nothing later in the day, Monday after my meeting, I have to actually stay an extra night now too. So there's literally about $1,500 more expense because the driving border from Canada to the US is closed. So I'm annoyed by that. So thanks a lot for the trip, the tips. Maria Davis says, great show as always. Thank you, Maria. Governor tips 420 for Sami Zayn is indie-rific. By the way, it was funny because last night, I don't know if people noticed, but Tank was holding a vape pen for a good portion of that interview. And when we had Colin Crandall from MMA Power Hour doing the reaction video with Tank, and somebody asked a question about what type of herb does he smoke, and he just held up the vape pen and it like went right over Colin's head. That Tank was holding up a vape pen. So thanks again for the $5, Maria. You guys are great. I'll do a couple questions here. Sam does not like Fat Owens. I actually saw a video of Conan recently saying the reason he doesn't like Owens is because he dresses like a bum with the shorts and the t-shirt and doesn't he's making $2 million a year but can't bother to train, can't bother to work out for $2 million a year. That's how lazy he is. But Conan said at the same time he thought he was underrated. If anything, he's the most overrated wrestler of the past decade. There's not one casual fan or a non-smart mark that finds that guy interesting. He's a channel flipper. Gerardo, I'm having a great night. I worked out. I voted. Let's hope we can get the current prime minister out of here after the way he handled the pandemic. Hidden Sword says no one can draw in WWE's crappy presentation. Well, Cena drew. Cena added to the house show numbers. That was a proven fact. Brock Lesnar boosts ratings. That's true. Sam says Orton's the legend killer. Owens is the rating killer. Cats and toys and vaping says Zayn looks like a bum. He looks like a manager. Definitely looks like a manager. Ivan, AEW has a school that's run by Dustin Rhodes. He can teach wrestlers how to demand full pay for indie dates up front and then no show like he did to Great North Wrestling back in 2007. Michael, there will never be another interview with the Goon. I don't have time to interview these people that are just complete losers. About Funk says Ring of Honor is from his state and has zero buzz and interest, can't draw flies. True. Bill, you are great. Colonel Quayle hopes PCO gets paid a lot. I have to respect PCO because not too long ago, the last shoot interview I did with PCO, which I believe was in 2017. And by the way, he's a former Great North Wrestling champion. And I would like to say, even though he'll give all the credit to Joey Janela because he likes to play that smart mark crowd, I'd like to say we helped him get back into the swing of things because he'd been off, and we gave him I think 7 or 8 bookings right at the start of his comeback. But what I was going to say is what I like to see about PCO, he was literally a bouncer in a strip club when I did that shoot interview with him in 2017, in his 40s, still bouncing. So to see him making good money again and being a prospect in wrestling, which he truly loves after all these years, it's great to see. Alexander would like to see Flair as a manager. Chris checking in from Massachusetts. Controlled Pairs says Coachman was one of the few guys to do well outside of WWE. Yeah, he did great. Chris Briggs, any news on Bray Wyatt? I think his no-compete clause is still in effect. It's believed he's going to show up in AEW when that's over. He hasn't put a pen to paper yet, but from all reports, they're very interested in him. I have heard some rumors that who knows, Qatar Pro Wrestling might even be in his future. But you never know. I've heard rumors about him and Braun Strowman maybe showing up in Qatar Pro Wrestling. Qatar is similar to Canada. They're still fairly restrictive for events. So I believe the holdup of them announcing their official date for next year is the whole COVID situation. But I've been airing some of their footage on this channel. I think that promotion has potential. Canada, it's still really strict here, particularly in Ontario, for putting on events. It's actually brutally strict. I've been trying to book another Great North Wrestling event, but they're all petrified of the fourth wave, all these arena managers. And what did one of them tell me last week? I'll even read it to you. This is the kind of stuff I've been dealing with. They find it essential to inform me that many communities are closing their community centers and arenas, even for workshops and courses, as they wish to prevent outbreaks rather than deal with the fourth wave. So I was just reading you. One of the arena managers from an arena I go to sent me that. So people that are saying Canada is wide open, no, it's not. It's the reason why WWE isn't returning here. There's still a lot of restrictions going on. Dumb absolutely loves PCO Dumb Friends Productions. It is nice to see him doing well after all these years, as well as Anderson Silva. Pubert says Tito looked terrible. That's got to be a big blow to Tito's ego, because if you remember, I interviewed him right after he got that knockout on Chuck Liddell, and he was bragging so much. Then he was saying he was going to make it seem like he was going to sign with WWE. That didn't come through. And now that he took that beating, I don't think that's going to really put much more interest in WWE from him. So, I mean, Tito didn't last as long against Silva as Alberto Del Rio. Tito actually took longer to beat Alberto Del Rio than Silva took to beat Tito. And Alberto Del Rio is a wrestler. Alexander says Anderson Silva from 2006 to 13 was the best MMA fighter in history. Alexander, I would actually take Jake Paul in that. I would actually take Jake Paul over Vitor. Definitely. I mean, he has the best trainers, and he has youth on his side. And it still baffles my mind. Punk had the money to hire all these amazing trainers, and he did horrible in real fighting. But Jake Paul has hired the best trainers, and he's really done great, and particularly killing it business-wise. So good for him. He actually even got WWE one of their highest ratings in a long time, just appearing on, I think it was either Raw or Smackdown. I can't remember, but got them one of their highest ratings of the year. I think the second highest rating of the year recently. So some fans were like, oh, he was booed. Well, you're actually supposed to boo people in wrestling. You're supposed to boo the heel. So good for him. Someone giving me a fist pump. Pubert says Holyfield looked every bit of 58 years old. I actually interviewed Holyfield. I'll tell you a funny story about me interviewing Evander Holyfield. He was at a local boxing match here in Ottawa. It was one of my first interviews ever, around 2012. It is on this channel, but I actually originally did it for another channel. And he agreed to do the interview with me without any problem. He said he would do it. And then I did it. And then the moment I walked away from him, this was before the boxing started, his security came up to me and said, you're not allowed to interview him. And I'm like, he just said I could do the interview with him. And he's like, you got to leave now. And I'm like, I don't care. I only came here to interview him. If you're I was only going to stay to be polite anyways. So if you're kicking me out, you're not going to have a fight for me, because I don't even want to stay for this amateur boxing. I just wanted to meet him. But I found that weird that even though Evander was happy to do the interview with me, that his security kicked me out of the building after. Couple more. Do an interview with Vince McMahon. I wish it was that easy. Roy Camp. Sad that Jake Paul won't face Woodley again. I think he's afraid. Actually, Woodley, I don't blame him for not facing Woodley again. He already beat Woodley. And Woodley's not really that huge of a name. He's not going to make – it's about business. He's already beaten Woodley. Fight someone that people are going to be interested in seeing. I don't think people really want to see a rematch between Jake Paul and Woodley. I sure as hell don't. I didn't even care about that fight, even enough to watch the highlights of it. So why would he give Woodley another fight. Woodley, I'm not taking anything away from Woodley as a fighter, but he went off, like he finished up with UFC on losing. He was losing his last bunch of fights. So I think it would only be to Woodley's benefit for Jake Paul to fight him again. So that's my opinion on that. Did I see the US Open final? No, I don't watch sports, to be perfectly honest with you. I edit and I work, and I'm more interested in UFO stuff than sports these days, although I do watch MMA and boxing here and there for my own training reasons. David says security can be assholes. I think I was one of the nicest security people, unless I have a very quick switch. I can actually deal with idiots for a long period of time, but when I switch into the attack mode, it's real fast, and it might come out of nowhere. But overall, I was pretty relaxed security guard. I mean, I was doing concert security for so long, and there's some dork security guards that literally you could be at an outside festival, and before they made weed legal here, as Piper wants to say hello again, there's some security guards that would literally go into a large mosh pit of people just to tell someone to put their marijuana cigarette out. It's like, why? You're outside. There's much more serious stuff going on that you have to watch for than worrying about a guy smoking a joint in a crowd of 30,000 people. I don't know. Alexander, yes, I was a security guard at a Taylor Swift concert, and I had a great view. So I didn't even know who Taylor Swift was before that concert, but I enjoyed that. I've actually done security for a hell of a lot of famous bands, even Britney Spears. I once walked Britney Spears. She was in a druid costume for her circus tour because the stage was in the middle of the arena, and she came out with all the druids, but she was actually disguised as a druid because obviously she didn't want to be, the druids kind of came through the crowd to get underneath the stage. And yeah, she was disguised as a druid, but I was the one chosen because I was the biggest security guard to walk beside her to make sure nothing happened to her on her way to the stage. So that was pretty cool. Have a great night. I'm going for a run here in a few minutes.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our